Greetings, programs, and welcome to another episode of Flix Joystix. I'm your host, Guy, and today, if you haven't gathered already, we're talking about Tron, the 1982 Disney classic directed and written by Steven Lisberger. Tron stars Bruce Boxleitner, Jeff Bridges, Cindy Morgan, and David Warner. This is one of my all-time favorite films, so are we ready to talk about Tron? Yes. That's the spirit. When Tron was introduced, the general public didn't know a lot about computers. Words that are familiar in our lexicon today were alien back then. And yet Tron was ahead of its time, visualizing a near symbiotic relationship between man and computer, which has happened today. In fact, the movie makes note of that when the character of Walter Gibbs says the computers and programs will start thinking and the people will stop. Which, if you're on social media and using phones these days, yeah, that's, yeah. Tron shares a lot of similarities to The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland as Kevin Flynn goes down his virtual rabbit hole into the world of computers, where he meets programs that are digital avatars of their human users. One of the things that I noticed on this last viewing of Tron is how reverent the programs are to their human users. They view them as their god, where programs are created in man's image. They want to be able to touch their creators, and even before speaking to their users, they bow their head in reverent thanks. The plot of Tron is simple. Kevin Flynn, who is played by Jeff Bridges, is trying to find information on a series of arcade games that he made for his company, Encom. However, his games were claimed by another programmer, Ed Dillinger, who claimed ownership of them and was eventually moved up to the higher echelons of corporate power. Flynn, however, was resigned to work in an arcade where kids pumping quarters into his arcade machines was the only way that he could actually see money on his creations. The movie does a great job of showing what the arcade scene was like back in the early 1980s. There really was a level of respect if you could play one of these games well, with people crowding around you and cheering you on. Flynn's goal, with the help of a programmer by the name of Alan Bradley and his girlfriend Laura, want to expose Dillinger's lies and restore Flynn's good name. Of course, with any sci-fi fantasy movie, this doesn't go to plan, and a computer program by the name of the Master Control program zaps Flynn into the game grid. This raises another question. What kind of company is Encom anyway? On one hand, they're making arcade games. On other hands, they're making matter digitization lasers. I know the whole subject of computers was thrown around freely in the early 1980s, but those are two very broad and diverse subjects that don't go hand in hand. So on one hand, people make space games. On the other hand, you're having people digitize oranges into the computer. And whatever happened when they digitized an orange? Technically, could some program walk up and eat it? And with a little creativity, maybe we could have had a story about a very different savior of the grid. Oh, who asked you? Tron was a story about a race against time. Alan needed to speak with his Tron security program. Tron needed a way to obtain Alan's key to weaken the MCP, and Flynn and Yori raced to the MCP to provide a distraction so that Tron could complete his mission. There were a lot of things going on in this film. Alan only needed a few minutes to unlock his Tron program. Laura only walked away for a few minutes, probably to get a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom, only to come back and find Flynn had had this incredible adventure without anyone being the wiser for it. Still, when I saw Tron in 1982, I was blown away by the visuals, and even today they still hold up really well. Tron used a number of methods to achieve its visual look, everything from rotoscoping, matte painting, traditional animation, and 20 minutes worth of computer animation. In an interesting twist, the Motion Picture Academy refused to nominate Tron for its special effects because it thought that using computers was cheating. Man, they just had no idea, did they? Exactly. Tron really did look like another world with all its vibrant colors and geometric shapes. It combined the day-to-day tasks of using a computer with the high-speed action of video games, and created this incredible world that existed inside a person's computer. Funny but true, most computers back then were the size of refrigerators. The vehicle designs were fantastic. I still absolutely love the slick design of the light cycles, geometric recognizers. The Solar Sailor is just a beautiful piece of early computer art. Of course, being Disney and in the early computer age, they did slip in a few cameos here and there. The designers worked hard to blur the lines between the computer world and the real world. There are several shots in those opening scenes where freeways and office cubicles look like circuit boards with electric pulses running through them. And Disney, banking heavily on the success of Tron, released all sorts of merchandise. Nothing was better than the video games. might have picked one up myself. As for movie-to-game conversions, none were done better than Midway Games' Tron and discs of Tron. Even the arcade cabinets were backlit with black lights and heavy booming music and great rendition of the soundtrack. Of course, early arcade games were there to eat your quarter, so most people didn't see a lot of the extra features that Tron had. As you got farther into the game, tanks were replaced by recognizers, and even the bit made an occasional appearance. I didn't forget you. And Tron still finds its way into video games today. For Disney, Tron was an ambitious project, especially since most families didn't have a computer inside their household. As advanced as it was a little too out there for most people. Though over the years there has been a dedicated fan base and a growing cult following to it. Tron's one of those movies that I enjoy. I definitely get something new out of each viewing. I've actually gotten a chance to see it in theaters a few times over the years, but I wanted to sit down and watch it at home. The sound effects are great. There is so much going on visually. It's such a detailed film. They even introduced the concept that computers might actually have a seedy side to it, which I thought was pretty funny. Even the soundtrack is one of my favorites. The synthetic beats that Wendy Carlos introduces is still one of those hummable soundtracks for me. I have watched Tron so many times over the years, and at least Disney does still acknowledge Tron exists. There are a lot of its darker films, especially movies like Black Hole, Black Cauldron, that they just have simply written off into fan cult obscurity. But Tron they still recognize every now and then. It took 28 years, but we finally got a sequel to it, Tron Legacy, an animated series, and even Disney parks are getting a new Tron ride, which is pretty awesome. Tron remains one of my most personal, influential films. It changed the way we looked at computers. It changed the way how we use computers in film, even if they were a little late to the game on accepting digital special effects. Tron is cited as one of the films that inspired Pixar to make computer-based movies. It's had a lot more of a cultural effect than you realize, but me, as I've gotten older and watched the film in different ways in a more critical light, I've enjoyed the film on a whole new level of what they were trying to achieve and how well that they've predicted our future. We're not going into computers yet, but someday. As always, let me know what you think and share some of your memories down below with me. I always love hearing new perspectives on Tron. Until then, however, I'll see you that next time. Take care.